Hi everybody, this is Ruvain Spolter from Kitah. Tomorrow, we're going to fast Asara B'Tevet, the 10th of Tevet. And its ancient historical reasons are reasons that are difficult for us to really connect to nowadays. And recognizing this, the chief rabbinate of Israel also determined that we should think on Asara B'Tevet, the 10th of Tevet, as Yom Hakaddish Haklali, the day of general kaddish, when you recite kaddish for people who have no longer have anyone to recite kaddish for them. And they were focusing primarily on people who were lost during the Shoah, where we didn't know when their yartzeit was. But I think there's another, in addition, that's so important, but in addition to that, there's another aspect of Yom Hakaddish Haklali, of mourning in general, that I want to connect to this week's Parsha using our Kitah type lesson to show you a pasuk in the Parsha, and gives us something to think about and maybe even discuss with our children about how we can relate and feel the pain of others, both on Asara B'Tevet and as we read through the Parsha. So in Parshat Miketz, we read about the reunification of Yosef and Yaakov. Finally, after more than 20 years, Yaakov and Yosef, Yaakov meets his son, he travels down to Egypt and meets his son Yosef. And the Torah tells us, so this is in Bereshit, Perek Mem Vav, chapter 46, Pasuk Chavtet, verse 29. The Torah says, Vaye'esor Yosef merkavto, made a little bigger. Yosef ordered his chariot, Vayal likrat Yisrael aviv, and he went up to meet his father, towards his father Goshna, in Eretz Goshen. Vayira elav, and he appeared to him. Vayipol al tzavarav, and he fell on his neck. Vayevk al tzavarav od. And he cried on Yaakov's neck. Yosef went to see Yaakov, and he met with his father, and he hugged him, and he embraced him, and he cried, and he cried. And so the Chazal asked a very interesting question. We know what Yosef did. Why didn't Yaakov cry? So Rashi says something really interesting. Rashi quotes the Midrash. Rashi says, Aval, but this is the end of that Rashi on that pasuk. Yaakov lo nafal al tzavare Yosef. Yaakov didn't fall on the neck of Yosef. V'lo neshako, and he didn't kiss him. Why not? V'amru rabotenu, the rabbi said, Shaya koret shema. He was saying Kriyat Shema. I mean, it's a very interesting midrash that why was Yaakov saying Shema at that particular time? Why was he being mekabel o malchut shemaim to accept the yoke of heaven at that time? But that's something for an interesting discussion. What does it mean about Shema? But I saw an interpretation by my friend Rabbi Jeffrey Sachs in this article in Tradition Online called Mourning Through a Glass Pane. And he said something very interesting. He said, if you think about it, he said possibly in Pshat, not according to Rashi, but a different understanding, we can understand it based upon a prior pasuk, an earlier pasuk that we read in 2 weeks ago. Okay, in Miketz, when Yaakov is shown the multicolored coat, and he said, "Oh, my son is dead." Vayakumu kol banav v'kol banav l'nachamo. This is chapter 37. All his sons and his daughters tried to console him. And he would not be consoled. Vayomer, and he said, Ki ered el bani avel she'ola. I will go down to Sheol, to the depths of hell with my son in mourning. Vayev koto aviv. And his father mourned for him. So Rashi says that that maybe he didn't stop. He didn't receive tanchumim, consolation, because maybe he knew deep down that he was alive. But Rabbi Sachs says something different. Rabbi Sachs says, why does it say that Yosef cried and Yaakov didn't cry? He says the reason, perhaps we can say, the reason is because he's been crying for over 2 decades. He never stopped crying. He's still crying. And meaning when he finally meets Yosef, now he can stop crying. Yosef is crying for the first time when he meets his father. But Yaakov lost Yosef. And throughout all that time, he never really stopped crying. Very, very moving. I think this year it's obviously been so difficult and painful for so many people dealing with COVID. One of the groups that we don't think about are those groups, the parents who have lost children when they're young, or even older parents now. If we think about it, there are many older parents who were always reciting kaddish for their children, who, when they've left the world, there's no one to recite that kaddish anymore. And I think that's something we should think about on this Yom Hakaddish Haklali, on the 10th of Tevet, to feel the pain of those parents who've lost their children, and to understand that pain, no matter how long and how long ago it was, that pain never really goes away. And if thank God, I've never experienced that that pain, and I hope that I never will. Nonetheless, we should have a sense of compassion and understanding for them, the way we tried to understand through Yaakov Avinu. Have a Shabbat Shalom.